Are we ready?
Yeah.
Welcome to Questions Answered. I'm Steve Thompson, president of Emery Thompson Machine.
I'm Christi Brown, vice president of sales and marketing.
And I'm Jeff Markow.
From Mystic Ices and Ice Cream Boot Camp.
Right. Mystic Ice Cream Boot Camp.
Yep. So we're going to answer questions from the audience that we have here today at our Make It Fresh class. And I'm going to start off. I want to tell you about a convention that's coming up. It's an ice cream, frozen dessert ice cream convention. Most conventions that you go to around the country are going to be a mishmash of restaurants and selling linens and Hot Pockets frozen desserts and bed frames and soft ice cream and hard ice cream mixed in there. So you're really getting a whole lot of stuff that you have no interest in whatsoever. This convention it used to be called an acronym, NICRA, National Ice Cream Retailers Association, NICRA. So their website, the old website, which is still in effect, is called nicra.org. What this is a convention that goes around the country. We have it once a year, and we had it in Florida not too long ago. And this year it's going to be in Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, technically in Fort Worth. And it'll start on Sunday, November 6th. Mike, does that go for 3 or 4 days?
Goes for 3 days, and it actually starts on Monday.
Oh, it starts on Monday. Sorry, I would have gotten you there a day early. So November 7th for 3 days. And this is the best thing you can do for your business. I get a lot of phone calls, a whole lot of phone calls, and so does Christi. And people are asking, hey, I live in Amarillo, Texas, and I want to go see an Italian ice business, and I want to ask the guy how he makes his ices and where he gets his flavors and what machine he uses. Well, we don't give out those names. Yes, I'll name drop big companies like Bluebell and Haagen-Dazs and Ben & Jerry that everybody knows, and Breyers and Hershey, people that we put into business as mom and pop businesses and they grow. But if you've got a store, I'm not giving out your name, because it's not fair, number one, for me to be using you to sell my machines. And your attitude is going to be, oh, Steve's sending people into my store so that they can steal my ideas. And I tried years ago to say, you're in Amarillo and they're opening up in Hawaii. Don't worry about it. Well, that doesn't work. People just feel someone impinging on their business is none of their business. So I know every other company gives out names. I don't do it. But that's why this conference becomes so important, because these same people who won't give you the time of day about how to make their Italian ice or their ice cream or their dairy-free will go to this convention, and they're so proud of what they do. Maybe it's the drinks with the little umbrellas in it, but they literally spill their guts. I tell people, you see someone who wears a badge and it says old timer, that doesn't mean me. It means someone who's been there for 2 years or more. And these are people who are in business, and you can walk up to them and say, hey, by the way, whose vanilla do you use? How do you make that lemon ice of Steve Thompson's? All these different questions, and they'll be thrilled to answer them for you. There'll be booths there, all related to ice cream. Nobody's selling bed linens or microwave ovens. It's going to be all to do with frozen desserts. So there's a lot of companies that will be there, including us and my competitors. So you'll get real side-by-side comparisons. And I beg you to come to it, because we do so well in side-by-side comparisons. But it's the best thing you can do. It's only once a year, and this year it's in Fort Worth. And it'll be really, really worth your time. They have one day, they can tell you what it is. You can either sign up for all the days and go to the meals and the conference meetings, if things like, if an ice cream cone costs $5, how much should you charge for a banana split? Meetings like that. They're valuable, worthwhile meetings. But if you don't have the money or the time, you can go for a one-day ticket and that'll have a certain much lower fee to it, and you get to come into the booth for about 5 or 6 hours and walk around and see everybody and talk to everybody. So either way, it's great. NICRA.org is the way I know it. The new name is something like North American Frozen Desserts, but I haven't learned it yet.
And the best part of going is you walk around and there's free stuff. Everybody's giving out free samples of stuff, not just pens and stuff. You're getting free food stuff in there. It's kind of cool.
Well, yeah, Forbes Chocolate's there, and they have little samples of their actual chocolate bars. So, going off of what Steve said, there'll be people that have where you can get your cups, your spoons, containers, where you can get your custom print things, your signages, things like that. So it's very, very good and helpful, especially because you get to see somebody face to face, and you can chit chat for a good 20 minutes and not realize it. And then they'll leave and come back again. And okay, I got about 15 more questions. So now you're going to spend another 30 minutes chatting with them.
And no, we are not giving out batch freezers as souvenirs. It's not because we're cheap, but I am. It's because we know you just can't get it on the airplane without them giving you a hassle. So I'm sorry.
We will have bags.
We will have bags.
We will have bags.
I have a 53-foot trail.
One person in the audience a little while ago asked about the adding alcohol to ice cream. Yes, sir.
I think he would. Yeah.
Oh, you want to answer the question? Go ahead.
What's the question?
Never mind. You just continue. He thought you were asking.
No, I was wondering who was it that asked about putting alcohol in ice cream?
That was me.
It was you. Okay. What was the question again?
How much alcohol would you put in to the batch freezer? Because alcohol doesn't freeze. Mm-hmm. To get that consistency and being able to freeze, is there a certain amount of alcohol you can put in there? I see Absolute Strong and Triple Sec. Mm-hmm. Both don't freeze.
Right.
So how much would you put in there to make sure it does freeze, or are you just looking for that soft consistency, kind of like a sorbet or the Italian ice? Okay, well, first off, and then I'll turn it over to everyone else. Alcohol does not freeze. I think the freezing point is somewhere around minus 270 degrees, and nothing goes that cold. But if you've got a strong enough machine with a strong enough freezing capacity, which is the Emery Thompson, and I think we're the only ones that you can do this successfully, we put alcohol right into the machine. And it doesn't freeze. It stays in suspension in the ice cream. So it will run a little softer than regular ice cream will. But what you do is in your serving cabinet or your storage freezer, it's a big box, and there's Freon lines running around it. So where I'm sitting at the center of the box might be 5 below, but at the corners, it could be 10 below. So you take your alcohol ice creams and you put them in the 4 corners of the box, and the alcohol will stay nicely in suspension. So that's what you do about that. But no, it will never freeze. I will, and I'll let Christi talk about how much putting in, and Jeff too. But I will tell you, you can overdo it. We got some grain alcohol in here once, 151 proof. Grain alcohol. The guy made this still up in Tennessee. And we put it into the ice cream, and we put a little too much in, so much so that the ice cream always remained soft. But the people who tasted it, I watched them, and every time they took a taste of it, they went like that, because there was so much alcohol in the ice cream that it caught your breath. And that does you no good at all. I'm trying to sell rum raisin ice cream, and if that's the IRS, they want to know about my using alcohol in ice cream. If you use too much, all you're doing is putting an alcohol in for alcohol's sake. It's got to add to the flavor, just like mint extract or chocolate chips. Go overboard, and people actually won't like it.
The face that he made is the face that I made on that mint chip ice.
How much alcohol do you use, Jeff?
Well, I'll speak about it a little bit. So the lower the proof, the more alcohol you can add. An example, I'm not super familiar with working with alcohol with ice cream, so I'm going to leave that to Jeff. But when you do with ices, I love that, hands down. So I like a bottle of wine. I make a very, very berry wine sorbet. I use an entire bottle of wine and then the equal amounts of water with sugar and fruit. Obviously, wine is a lower proof.
In which machine?
The CB350.
Okay.
If I am trying to do that with that absolute citron, no, that's not going to happen. It's too high of a proof. So it's just learning the balance. Now that is when I do my taste testing. Like you guys all know, I have the CB200. So I'll start with a few ounces and then I'll taste it, because you can always add more, but you can't take back. Right. So I'll give it a taste, and if I know I can't taste it, it's definitely going to freeze. So once I start to taste it and how strong it tastes, that's kind of my clue to kind of, that's really good where we're at. And then, of course, I'll run it, let it freeze, and then I'll know at that point, too, it's taken 18 minutes to freeze. Okay, I definitely put too much alcohol.
For the most part, what you'll find you're going to use are liqueurs, which are lower alcohol concentrate inside.
Mm-hmm.
Good point.
We use a lot of Baileys. We use Kahlua, Amaretto, and those are all 15%. They're nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So you can use anywhere between, in a 24 quart, which is what I use, we use anywhere between a bottle and a half, a 750 and a half, or Baileys, we use 2 175s. Because Baileys is not only a liqueur, but it's got all that cream going on. Basically, what I try to do is get the flavor into the ice cream. I'm not concerned with how much alcohol, more or less. It doesn't matter. I want the flavor in there. Mm-hmm. There are some ice creams like our rum raisin. Now that's rum. That's the goods. And we use a half a gallon of rum. But there again, we soak the raisins for about 3 or 4 days so they absorb the rum. When you put the half gallon in a bucket of rum and then add the raisins to it, when you come back in 3 days, there's no rum in there. The raisins absorb it all. So when people taste the ice cream, they're getting the flavor and they're getting a pop when they pop the raisins in their mouth. So, but that's about the most alcohol of any of the ice creams would be rum raisin. We don't use 151, we don't need to. And we use Caribbean rum, which is a nice flavor. But I wouldn't concern myself with it, because for the most part you'll be using liqueurs. We use peach schnapps, wild cherry liqueur, Kahlua, Amaretto, Baileys, those things. And they're not high alcohol.
Yeah, well, and if you work with ices, and that's all I use is hard liquor. I hardly use any liqueurs. You got to stick with ounces. No whole bottles.
One of my customers wrote last week, and she was insistent that she wanted to know how much vodka to put into a CB350. And I couldn't help myself. I kept saying, why bother? Vodka really doesn't have any taste to it. It's not improving any product that you're putting it into. It's just adding alcohol for the sake of it. Now, like Jeff said about the rum raisin or a bourbon vanilla, a good Kentucky bourbon into a vanilla ice cream is really going to be a nice taste. So both Christi and Jeff's points really hone in on it. You're doing it for the flavor. You're not doing it just for the sake of calling it boozy ice cream.
Mm-mm.
And I'll tell you, really where you make money is having it on your menu. And of course the sign that's going to make you a lot of money is over 21. And we have that because you need to do that. You can't sell it to kids. So when you have over 21 and you put Baileys, Kahlua, Amaretto chip and all these things, that's a hook. And that's what's going to get people talking about your place and bringing them back with their friends, because it's a hook. Right. I mean, it's delicious ice cream, but maybe you'd go so far as to say it's a gimmick. But you're really doing it, but the word spreads pretty good on it.
Okay. So question to echo that. For permitting purposes, because it's an ingredient, do you need alcohol permits for alcoholic ice cream?
No, not. You have to check with your individual state, but they're all going to have a maximum that you can put in. So what you want to do is have a friend of a friend call the state and say, what is the maximum alcohol that I can put in? And get that number.
And then when the inspector comes and they say, well, how much alcohol did you use in this? And he knows that the state limit might be, 0.7. Your answer, of course, is 0.6. You're not going to break the law, so you're always going to say 0.6. So it's really that simple. You don't need a license, and it's just that simple. It's become very more prevalent than it used to be. I mentioned during the class earlier.
You don't need a license unless you go to City Hall and ask if you need a license.
Exactly. That's not the point I'm trying to get to. Have the friend of the friend call.
Didn't I also hear too is if you try to make it your Bailey's ice cream into a milkshake, that because it's got a straw in it, that is when you do, right? No?
I heard that they declared it a mixed drink.
Oh,
Right.
But that may be urban legend.
It's urban legend.
Because I think those are the kind of tricks of the trade that we do want to understand, like if you have a straw in it or if you don't, or the type of cup or things like that. So we can research that offline, but I think that's probably a bigger, from the paperwork side, making sure we understand.
You can also call here. We have, for 118 years, we have a lot of contacts in the industry. All my friends who we were all driving around Long Island, there's the IRS again. We were driving around Long Island, Connecticut, New York, and Brooklyn, and now we're all senior vice presidents, presidents, CEOs of our companies. So when you call us, we can direct you to someone, if we don't know the answer, someone who does. We won't give you an answer just to answer the question. We'll make sure that we're certain on it. Question? No?
Any questions? Surely we do.
Here we go.
I got a question with regards to Italian ice. I'm originally from New England, and in New England we used to call,
Slush.
no, we called it
Water
I'm
ice?
forgetting.
Grenade.
Lemonade. You just call it lemonade.
Yes,
It's just
lemonade. Yeah.
And as I started moving further south, they would call it differently. I've been in Philadelphia, they had water ice. Of course, the Italian ice was popular up north too. So in order to keep the consistency there with the Italian ice with freezing, or what is the
Scott?
temperature normally set at? Is it going to be different from the ice cream?
That's two different questions, yes. Ice cream is usually scooped around 6 to 8 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a good scooping temperature. The Italian ice that I scoop at so that I can put it into a dish is 16 degrees Fahrenheit. Give or take, a degree or so. But it's warmer, so you need a separate cabinet for the Italian ice. Or you can look at my website and the videos, or call me. There's a device called Inkbird, and it's a thermostat that you can put in any ice cream freezer and adjust the temperature upwards for $35. But the different products, your frozen lemonade up in Massachusetts and Rhode Island is I don't love it. I think it's very lacking in flavor. But it's a big seller. I sell a lot of machines up there. But in a 24-quart machine, the big one behind my shoulder, it would be 6 pounds of sugar in the formula. That's very low. And that gives it that icy, slushy, not much flavor consistency. You drive down I-95 to New York, and that sugar content goes up to 7. And we have New York Italian ice at 7 pounds, and it's got texture to it. Then you go down to Philadelphia, and the name changes to water ice, or Wada ice, and it's 8 pounds of sugar, and it's smoother and creamier. So all up and down the East Coast, all those products are basically Italian ice, but the sugar content changes the texture and the flavor. More sugar. People call up and they say, my lemon ice doesn't have enough flavor in it. How much lemon are you using? Well, I'm using a full quart. Okay, well, the lemon's good. Try upping your sugar by a half a pound and see if the flavor doesn't improve. Because sugar doesn't necessarily make it sweeter at a half pound level, or even maybe a pound, but it does make it more tart, or more, whatever your flavor is, more mango-y, if there's such a word. And that's all in our videos. Those are things we can help you with. I've been making ices for over 48 years. And so I know all of it. And I wasn't allowed to talk about all of it back when I was in New York because it wasn't safe. But now I can.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, well then I guess we'll break for lunch.
and we'll bring that in, and then we're going to come back here and make some more ices and ice cream.
In case you haven't had enough.
Yeah. Yeah, it's usually around this point. When we first convene in the morning, I forgot to ask you, I said, hey, who wants ice cream? Everybody goes, yeah! And then right about after lunch, who wants ice cream? Yeah. And then, we got time for one more flavor. Anybody want another ice cream? I think I hear my cat calling me. I'm sorry, I got to go. So we understand. Do be careful when you're running your own store, because every time you take a taste of something, that's an ounce of product. And I'm going to ask you the really insulting question. Did you mean to eat 32 ounces of ice cream today? And you go, I didn't do that. Oh, yes, you did. You took a spoonful of each one. So you'll see me only taking a little tiny taste. I learned the hard way. So here comes lunch, and we'll get everything together for you.